The year is 2025. The global economy teeters on a precipice. The International Chamber of Commerce issues a stark warning. Escalating tariffs threaten a new Great Depression. This is not hyperbole. The parallels to the 1930s are chilling. In the 1930s, protectionist policies strangled international trade. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act passed in the United States triggered a wave of retaliatory tariffs worldwide. Global trade plummeted, economies crumbled, the world is now at a crossroads. Will we repeat the mistakes of the past, or will we choose cooperation over conflict? The answer may determine the fate of the global economy. The current situation is deeply troubling. The United States, under renewed pressure from returning President Trump, has imposed hefty tariffs on goods from China, Mexico, and Canada. These tariffs, totaling trillions of dollars, are designed to protect American jobs and industries. However, economists warn of unintended consequences. Tariffs are essentially taxes on imported goods. These taxes increase costs for businesses and consumers alike. Higher prices can lead to reduced demand, stifling economic growth. The ICC estimates that these tariffs could add over $1 trillion to global trade costs. This would be a staggering blow to the already fragile world economy.
The economic data paints a grim picture. Protectionist policies, while intended to safeguard domestic industries, often come with unintended consequences that ripple through the economy. Factory gate costs in the United States have reached a near 3-year high. This surge in costs is largely attributed to tariffs on imported raw materials, which have made production more expensive for American manufacturers. The U.S. trade deficit continues to balloon, reaching a record $131.4 billion in January 2025. This growing deficit indicates that the country is importing far more than it is exporting, a trend exacerbated by retaliatory tariffs from trade partners. In Canada, the Chamber of Commerce warns of potential recessions and job losses. Canadian businesses heavily reliant on trade with the U.S. are feeling the pinch as tariffs disrupt supply chains and increase costs. The Mexican peso and Canadian dollar have both weakened against the U.S. dollar. This depreciation makes imports more expensive for these countries, further straining their economies and reducing their purchasing power. Global stock markets have reacted with alarm, with share prices tumbling. Investors are wary of the uncertainty that protectionist policies bring, leading to increased volatility and reduced confidence in the markets. These are not just numbers on a screen. They represent real people's lives, jobs lost, businesses shuttered, and families struggling to make ends meet. The human cost of protectionism is profound, affecting communities and livelihoods across the globe. As policymakers navigate these complex issues, it is crucial to consider the broader implications of their decisions on both the economy and society.
The parallels to the 1930s are undeniable. Then, as now, protectionist policies were seen as a solution to economic woes. Then, as now, those policies backfired spectacularly. History teaches us that tariffs are a dangerous game. They rarely achieve their intended goals and often lead to unintended consequences. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, far from protecting American jobs, deepened the Great Depression. The world cannot afford to repeat that mistake. We must learn from the past and choose a different path, a path of cooperation and free trade.
Section 5. A House of Cards. The global economy is a complex and interconnected system, much like a delicate house of cards. Each card represents a different country, industry, or financial institution, all balanced precariously on one another. The slightest disturbance can send the entire structure tumbling down. Tariffs, like a virus, can spread rapidly, infecting the entire system. They start small, perhaps as a single policy change, but their effects can quickly multiply. Just as a virus can mutate and become more dangerous, tariffs can escalate, leading to trade wars and economic instability. When one country imposes tariffs, others are likely to retaliate. This tit-for-tat approach can create a vicious cycle, where each new tariff leads to another in response. Politicians may believe they are protecting their own economies, but in reality, they are contributing to a global problem. This can trigger a domino effect, with each round of tariffs further damaging the global economy. The initial impact might be small, but as more and more countries get involved, the consequences can become severe. Trade volumes decrease, prices rise, and economic growth slows down. The International Chamber of Commerce warns that the current situation is like a coin flip, with a 50-50 chance of tariffs spiraling out of control. This uncertainty makes it difficult for businesses to plan for the future, leading to reduced investment and economic stagnation. If that happens, the consequences for the global economy could be catastrophic. Stock markets could crash, factories might shut down, and millions of people could lose their jobs. the ripple effects would be felt in every corner of the world, from the largest cities to the smallest villages. We are standing at a precipice. The decisions we make now will determine whether we fall into an economic abyss or find a way to rebuild and strengthen our global economy. It is a moment of great risk, but also of great opportunity. The choices we make today will determine our fate for years to come. Will we continue down a path of protectionism and isolation, or will we work together to create a more stable and prosperous world? The future is in our hands, and the stakes have never been higher. Section 6. The Perils of Isolationism. The current wave of protectionism is driven by a dangerous myth, the myth that countries can prosper by isolating themselves from the global economy. This is a fallacy. In today's interconnected world, no country is an island.
International trade, when conducted fairly, benefits all parties involved. It allows countries to specialize in what they do best and to access goods and services that they cannot produce efficiently themselves.
Protectionism, on the other hand, leads to higher prices, reduced choice, and slower economic growth. It is a recipe for stagnation and decline. Section 7. A Call for Cooperation. The world needs a course correction. In an era where economies are more interconnected than ever, the ripple effects of protectionist policies can be felt far and wide. The stakes are high and the consequences of inaction are dire. We need to move away from the brink of a trade war and toward a more cooperative and rules-based global trading system. This means fostering an environment where nations can work together, share resources, and build a sustainable future for all.
The ICC has called on world leaders to show leadership and to resist the temptation of protectionism. They emphasize the importance of maintaining open lines of communication and building trust among nations. They argue that the only way to prevent a global economic crisis is through dialogue, cooperation, and a commitment to free and fair trade. This approach not only benefits individual countries, but also strengthens the global economy as a whole. By embracing these principles, we can create a more stable and prosperous world. Free and fair trade ensures that all nations have the opportunity to thrive, reducing poverty and promoting economic growth.
This is not just an economic imperative. The human cost of economic instability is profound. When economies falter, it is the ordinary people who suffer the most. It is a moral one. We have a responsibility to ensure that our economic policies do not exacerbate inequality or leave the most vulnerable behind. The costs of a global depression would be borne most heavily by those least able to afford it, the poor, the vulnerable, and the marginalized. It is our duty to work together, to build a world where everyone has the opportunity to succeed, and to ensure that no one is left behind. Section 8. Charting a different course. There is still time to change course. Governments around the world need to resist the siren song of protectionism. They need to work together to reduce trade barriers, not erect new ones. The World Trade Organization, though weakened in recent years, can play a vital role in mediating disputes and promoting a rules-based trading system. Countries should work within the WTO framework to resolve their differences. We need to remember that a rising tide lifts all boats. Global prosperity is not a zero-sum game. When one country prospers through trade, it creates opportunities for others. Section 9. A Shared Destiny. The challenges facing the global economy are significant, but they are not insurmountable. By working together, we can avert disaster and build a more prosperous and equitable future for all.
The choice is ours. We can choose the path of isolationism and conflict, a path that leads to economic ruin. Or we can choose the path of cooperation and free trade, a path that leads to shared prosperity.
The future of the global economy, and indeed the future of our planet, may depend on the choices we make today.